Let's get started with our first news. Charles Oliveira will be fighting for the belt with a Big One over Max Holloway. What's up everyone and welcome back to the M&A Zone. Last week it was revealed that Oliveira will be taking on Holloway for the BMF title at UFC 326, and ever since that announcement, Oliveira has made it clear that a dominant performance could launch him straight back into title contention. During an appearance on AG Fight's YouTube channel, Oliveira broke down the current lightweight landscape. He explained that the UFC is a business and that popularity matters. In his eyes, he's a much bigger draw than fighters like Paddy, Justin Gaethje, and Arman. Because of that, he believes that winning the BMF belt puts him right back at the front of the title conversation. Oliveira pointed out that the division has been in a strange place lately. Islam asked for time off, which opened the door for an interim title fight in January. Just 2 months later, Oliveira steps in for the BMF matchup. Oliveira said that, with all due respect, he sells more and has more charisma than the two fighters competing for the interim belt. In his view, that naturally pushes him closer to a championship opportunity. He also gave credit to Arman, saying Arman was the one who truly deserved either the interim or undisputed title shot, but he admitted he doesn't understand why the UFC didn't give Arman that opportunity. Still, he believes the reality of the business is simple. He brings in more attention, he draws more eyes, and that matters. Oliveira promised he'll deliver a Gaethje fight at UFC 326. If he wins in spectacular fashion, he believes he'll burst the bubble and position himself as the next man in line for the lightweight title. Move on to another news. Khamzat-Garry has responded to Joaquin Buckley's call out, and the situation has gotten intense fast. Buckley has been calling out Rakhmonov repeatedly, convinced that a knockout win over the undefeated contender would launch him straight into a title shot. He took things up a level on Instagram, posting a fiery message where he accused Rakhmonov of avoiding him and hiding overseas. Buckley wrote that Rakhmonov has never fought someone with my speed, never fought someone with my pressure, never fought someone with my power. He claims Shavkat has been living off an image and he's ready to destroy that image in violent fashion. Buckley insisted that if Rakhmonov truly believes he's next for the title, then there's only one path forward: fight him. He said a matchup between them exposes everything, calling out Rakhmonov's supposed holes, hesitation, and limits. Buckley even added that Rakhmonov's team refuses to mention his name because they know how dangerous he is. He reminded everyone that even Henry Hooft once said that none of the top guys should fight him. Buckley finished by declaring that he's coming for Rakhmonov with no excuses and wants him to Saiji and Chuchu and Brasi. Rakhmonov actually saw the post and replied directly in the comments. His message was short, sharp, and immediately controversial. He wrote, "Black boy, you get beat up." Buckley fired back instantly, responding, "Nah, say what you really want to say, little." From that moment, it was clear that real animosity had sparked between them. Buckley is pushing hard for this matchup because he believes beating an undefeated, highly touted contender like Rakhmonov puts him directly into the title conversation. He sees it as the fastest path to the top of the division, and he's using every tool he has to provoke Rakhmonov into accepting the fight. The back and forth has created a genuine rivalry vibe, and fans immediately reacted to how personal it became. Rakhmonov, usually calm and silent, doesn't often engage in trash talk. His comment, regardless of how it lands with fans, shows that Buckley's call-out got his attention. If this matchup ever becomes official, the build-up alone would be explosive. Both fighters bring pressure, both bring power, and the clash of styles would be a showdown with title implications written all over it. Move on to another news. Alexander Volkanovski has shaked Dobin retirement rumors ahead of his upcoming fight at UFC 325 against Diego Lopez. Despite the speculation swirling around him, Volkanovski made it absolutely clear that he has zero plans to walk away after this fight. In fact, he's thinking the complete opposite. He wants a QISK to Owen, he wants to stay active, and he wants to add names like Movsar Evloev and Laren Murphy to his already stacked resume. Volkanovski explained that nothing about this camp or this moment feels like the end. He said it hasn't been planned as his last fight, and he emphasized that fans shouldn't worry about him leaving the sport anytime soon. His mindset is strictly on delivering a CN performance, avoiding unnecessary damage, and making a stira installment once he steps into the cage. He wants to look sharp, dominant, and impressive, setting up a fast return soon after. He talked about the featherweight landscape as well, mentioning that fighters like Evloev and Murphy are undefeated, hungry, and building momentum. For Volkanovski, those are the kinds of opponents that add to his CY. He sees them as interesting tests, potential challenges that could push him to showcase his abilities even more. That's why retirement isn't even crossing his mind right now. He wants to stay in the mix, defend his spot, and continue adding meaningful wins. Volkanovski also said he loves the idea of competing in Sydney, putting on a massive performance for the home crowd, and possibly lining up another fight soon afterward. For him, this is about staying busy, staying sharp, and reminding everyone why he's been one of the most consistent champions in the sport. He's confident that once he steps into the octagon at UFC 325, he'll deliver exactly the kind of performance that keeps him right at the top of the division. There are absolutely no plans for retirement. Volkanovski is focused, motivated, and committed to keeping his run going. His goal is to show the world he's still one of the best to ever do it, and that his story in the featherweight division is far from finished. Move on to another news. Joe Rogan has reacted to the recent altercation between Khamzat and Garry, an incident that took place during UFC Qatar where cameras captured a moment of tension between the two. In the footage, Garry approached Khamzat and came off slightly aggressive, which led to Khamzat pushing him away. Since then, both fighters have given their versions of what happened, and the reactions have only added more heat to the situation. Garry expressed his frustration publicly, calling Khamzat a disgrace and accusing him of acting out of character. On the other side, Khamzat didn't seem bothered at all. In an ESPN interview, he joked that Garry was simply trying to gain more attention by poking at him. He said that giving Garry any spotlight would only make him more famous, and he didn't mind talking about him because it helps build hype. Khamzat brushed the whole thing off with humor, even joking about how a fight with Garry would taste sweet, but then made it clear he's more focused on bigger names like Alex. But the situation got even more interesting when Joe Rogan discussed the altercation on his podcast with Brendan Allen. Rogan said the interaction looked strange and pointed out that another camera angle showed Garry slapping Khamzat on the back pretty hard before the shove happened. Rogan explained that most viewers only saw the second half of the clip, which made it look like Khamzat reacted aggressively for no reason. But when you see the full moment, Garry clearly approached him in a way that came off as confrontational. Rogan described Garry as someone who tries to Big Brother people, acting friendly but with a passive-aggressive edge. He said Garry's tap wasn't a friendly pat, but something more forceful, almost like grabbing his clothes and nudging him in a way that crossed a line. Allen agreed, saying it wasn't a normal, "Hey brother" type of interaction. It was something different, awkward, uncomfortable, and definitely aggressive in a subtle way. Rogan added that while there are things Garry says or does that he disagrees with, he also respects some aspects of him as a fighter and as a man. But in this moment, the behavior was strange and unnecessary, especially towards someone as intense as Khamzat. The entire situation has only added fuel to the ongoing tension, creating another storyline that fans will continue watching closely. Move on to another news. The UFC has officially confirmed that Merab will be fighting Gaethje in a highly anticipated rematch. This comes right after Merab stepped into the cage for the fourth time this year in an attempt to defend his title once again. Unfortunately for Merab, he wasn't able to make history by becoming the first fighter to defend the belt 4 times in a single calendar year. Despite the setback, Merab has been in good spirits, sharing positive videos online and showing fans that he's handling the loss with maturity and focus. He even posted an update on X, assuring everyone that his health is fine and making it clear that he's Raoidwa for the rematch as soon as possible. However, not everyone believed that the UFC would immediately run it back. During a recent discussion, Sean Ali said he didn't see Merab getting the rematch right away, arguing that Merab got dominated and the UFC wouldn't book a second fight so quickly. He mentioned that Petryan earned a 54-5 win and that rematches rarely happen under those circumstances. Others disagreed, pointing out that Merab dominated the first fight and that fairness alone should give him another shot, especially since Yan fought the first matchup with a broken right hand. But all that talk ended quickly. In a new interview, Merab revealed that the UFC directly contacted him and confirmed that the rematch with Petryan is next T. According to him, the UFC even told him to take as much time as he needed. The translated statement said, "The UFC contacted me and said, please rest as long as you want. Your next fight is a rematch with Petryan for the belt. Rest as long as you want and call us when you're ready." Even though the UFC expects the fight to take place in the summer, Merab doesn't want to wait that long. He explained that he suffered no serious injuries and hopes to schedule the fight earlier, ideally in the spring around April. If not, summer is still an option, but he clearly prefers to stay active and bounce back quickly. Joe Rogan also reacted to the fight during his podcast, talking about how Insane Petrien's training camp must have been to defeat someone like Merab. Rogan said it must have been absolute hell, and from the training footage he saw, full of intense strength work and plyometrics, it was obvious Yan knew exactly what kind of mountain he had to climb. He also pointed out that in their first fight, Yan had an injured right hand, barely used it, and couldn't throw proper combinations. Now healthy and prepared, his performance made perfect sense. Move on to another news. A UFC fighter has peeled out of his fight at the Virwile Aspinall, causing major frustration among fans and shaking up the UFC Vegas 112 lineup. Malik Bagdasaryan and Joe Anderson Brito were scheduled to face off this weekend, but that matchup is officially off. Bagdasaryan withdrew from the fight with no disclosed reason, leaving the promotion scrambling to save the bout. What makes this even more frustrating is that this isn't the first time these two were matched up. Back in 2022, Bagdasaryan and Brito were supposed to fight, and Bagdasaryan pulled out of that one as well. Thankfully, the UFC moved fast and secured a replacement for Brito. Rising Australian prospect Isaac Thompson has stepped in on short notice. While the quick fix keeps Brito on the card, the reaction from the MMA community has been mixed. Some fans feel bad for Thompson, believing he's walking into a dangerous matchup with little preparation. One fan wrote that the poor guy might genuinely get hurt, while another suggested the matchup felt unfair because Brito is already experienced at the UFC level. Isaac Thompson, however, isn't just some last-minute regional fighter. He was signed by the UFC specifically to fill this spot. At only 23 years old, he's considered one of Australia's top young talents, and this fight could be a massive opportunity for him. Meanwhile, Joe Anderson Brito is 30 years old, holding a 3-2 record in the UFC, and is coming off 2 consecutive losses. With his back against the wall, Brito absolutely needs a win here to regain momentum. Even though the matchup came together under stressful circumstances, it creates an intriguing storyline. Thompson gets a huge chance to make an immediate impact, while Brito has a must-win fight to keep his place in the division secure. The fan reactions highlight how unpredictable the sport can be, with last-minute pullouts always bringing chaos and new challenges for everyone involved. Regardless of how this short-notice matchup plays out, the situation underscores how quickly things can change in the UFC. Fighters must stay ready, replacements must be willing, and opportunities can arrive out of nowhere. Thompson now steps into the spotlight, Brito gets to stay active, and Bagdasaryan's unexplained withdrawal leaves questions hanging as the event moves forward. Move on to another news. Curtis Blaydes has stepped in to defend Tom Aspinall after the massive backlash surrounding the eye poke incident with Cyril Gane, with so many fans claiming the poke wasn't serious, and insisting that Tom wanted a way out. Blaydes made it clear that this narrative is completely wrong. He spoke on the James Lynch show and explained that UFC fighters are warriors and none of them are afraid to fight. According to Blaydes, if Aspinall said he couldn't continue, then that decision deserves respect, not hate. Blaydes broke down the moment clearly. As Gane was retracting his hand, the fingers dug deep into Tom's eye, and it wasn't just a quick graze. Blaydes emphasized that Tom isn't scared, he isn't weak, and he definitely isn't someone who would quit unless something was seriously wrong. He pointed out that when a fighter can't see properly, they're at risk of getting knocked out for reasons completely outside their control, and no professional fighter wants to lose like that. If Aspinall felt his vision was compromised, stepping back was the smart thing to do, not the cowardly thing. Blaydes also addressed the wave of anger from fans, saying he doesn't understand why people are so quick to attack Tom, instead of looking at what actually happened. He reminded everyone that UFC athletes are lions. Lions don't fear other lions. They show up ready to fight, ready to win or lose, but never ready to give up out of fear. The idea that Tom was scared of Gane is simply ridiculous. Every athlete at this level accepts the risks, the pressure, and the possibility of defeat. What they never accept is ignoring an injury that can cost them their career. The hate toward Aspinall feels especially misplaced considering that the accidental poke didn't just land in one eye. It caught Blaydes. Anyone who's ever dealt with eye injuries knows how dangerous they are, and continuing to fight with double vision, blurry vision, or intense pain would have been reckless. Tom made the professional decision, not the emotional one. If fans want to direct blame, it makes far more sense to look at Gaines' repeated hand, fanning and extended fingers, which led to the clash. Aspinall did what any high-level competitor should do: protect his career, protect his health, and avoid a pointless, unfair risk. The narrative that he quit is simply false, and Blaydes was right to step in and remind everyone of the truth.